Captain? Big fan?
What if events went differently? What if Spider-Man joined Captain America in Captain America Civil War? What would have happened? What would have changed? Find out in today's fan fiction. During Civil War, Peter Parker's identity was found by Tony Stark before the battle at the airport in Germany, but in our timeline, things would change very fast at the start of the recruitment. Tony would still show up to Peter's door telling him that he wanted him on the team, and in our reality, Peter would tell Tony he can't go to Germany and that he had to remain in New York City. Tony would threaten Peter, telling Peter if he won't join him that he was going to tell Aunt May everything. Peter would web Tony's hand up to the door before he could leave, and he would tell Tony that he would do whatever it takes to keep his own identity a secret and that he didn't want any part of this fight. He would go on saying that it wasn't his problem to help Tony, and he would explain that it was a good opportunity for him, but after everything that happened to him, he couldn't get involved and that he had to take care of Aunt May. He would be pleading with him, telling him he didn't want any part of this at all. Tony would tell Peter if he won't join him, he can't be Spider-Man anymore, and that he would have him arrested and thrown in prison if he ever saw him web swinging ever again. Peter would be shocked hearing this from Tony, saying that he looked up to Iron Man, and he would tell Tony he wanted to be like him, but after hearing that, he's not so sure anymore. He would tell Tony he wanted to help the average person out because it was his responsibility to. If he could do good things for other people, it was his commitment to do those good things. Tony would laugh, saying it's over, kid, and he would tell Peter, remember what I said to you, you're done, and he would walk out of the door and he would slam it, and he would see Aunt May on the couch, and all he would do would smile at her, and he would walk out of the apartment building. This would change your MCU timeline now, because now Peter has lost the respect for Tony Stark, and he wouldn't look up to him as he did in the original timeline. He knew that there was a bigger fight happening, but he knew if he got involved, there would be more risks for him. He knew that Captain America was someone who would stand up for what he stood for, and that was the kind of hero he wanted to be. He knew Iron Man was a different type of hero, and he knew he didn't want to turn into him, even though it was a great offer, and that Iron Man had many great perks and upgrades. Peter would look at his suit and he would put it on, and he would be very angry with Tony, but he knew this was the only way he could keep his identity a secret. Peter knew that he was being blackmailed, and he thought, what choice did he have? He didn't have one. He didn't even know if he could stop being Spider-Man. Tony would be in the vehicle and they would start driving off. He would pick up the phone, phoning Black Widow, telling her that the kid didn't want to join the team and that he wasn't needed anymore. During this time, Peter would put his homemade suit on and he would start swinging, trailing Tony's vehicle. Tony would make it back to the compound, and Peter would be in the shadows, crawling inside, being undetected. He could hear Tony talking about him and what was going to happen next. The whole team was ready to go to the airport, and Tony said that he was still going to arrest the kid for not joining him, but for now, they had less than 36 hours to bring in Captain America. Peter would crawl out of the building, and he would take his mask off, knowing this was it. He was going to be controlled as a hero for here on out, unless he stood up for himself. He thought he would see what Iron Man had to offer, but when the time was right, he would flee the area. Spider-Man would show up at the front door and they would look outside to see him in a security camera. Tony would be shocked to see that he had made the right choice by joining him. He would be happy and he would meet him outside. Spider-Man would tell Tony that all he wanted to do was to be a hero and nothing else. Tony would explain for him not to worry, and once they had captured Captain America, he would be able to roam free if he ends up signing the contract. Peter would say, I'm only doing this for the little guys, and he would walk into the building. Tony would give Peter his brand new suit and they would go to the airport. Now in our timeline, because Peter feels he's being blackmailed by Iron Man, he hasn't fully gained his trust because he feels like he's being used and cast aside after he is done. And he also knows what Cap is fighting for and why the sides are drawn. He's able to see through Tony's point of view instead of being brainwashed to fight Cap, and he can see the full truth of everything. Tony would tell Peter that this was the only way that he could become a hero, and it was the new way of things. And Tony would say, once you work for the government, there is no way that you can go back. Now, Peter, before the airport, would be told this, and he would feel betrayed. Like, the deal was pretty much off, and he knows that now he has to reveal himself to the world. And the deal is pretty much off, and he knows what he got himself into. This was it, and he knew it unless he switched sides during the battle. Could he get away with it? How could he get away with it in time? He had to fight, and he thought, how would he go about things? The events in the timeline would be going the same, and Iron Man would call for Spider-Man, and Spider-Man would use his webs to take Captain America's shield. But in this timeline, the timeline would for forever change, and Spider-Man wouldn't say anything, and he would look at Iron Man telling him that there was no hard feelings, and Iron Man would be confused, and Spider-Man would throw Cap's shield at Iron Man, and Iron Man would be hit to the ground, and Spider-Man would use his webs to throw the shield back to Captain America, and Captain America would look at Spider-Man, and he would ask who he was supposed to be, and Spider-Man would say, somebody who stands for what you stand for, sir. And Iron Man would slowly get back, telling Peter that it was a bad idea that he did this to himself, and Spider-Man would walk towards Tony, telling him that he wanted to be a hero on his own terms and not his pet. He would tell Tony, anybody could be a hero, but now you're trying to stop that, and I can't allow that to happen. I gave it a lot of thought, and now you have to be stopped. You're too dangerous. Iron Man would shoot a repulsor blast at Spider-Man, but he would use his spider sense and he would dodge it. Cap would charge Iron Man and he would use his shield, throwing him to the ground. Spider-Man would be fighting Black Panther and Black Widow at the same time, and he would kick Black Widow in the face, and he would use his webs, making her go flying to the ground. Spider-Man would web Black Panther up, throwing him into Ant-Man, and Ant-Man would kick him in the face, throwing him to the ground also. Scarlet Witch would use her powers to crush War Machine's armor in front of Iron Man, and she would throw War Machine right onto Vision, and they would both go flying. Iron Man and Captain America would be battling it out in front of everybody, and Winter Soldier and Falcon would be able to get to the Quinjet in time, because in this timeline, Spider-Man isn't there to stop them. Vision would be manhandling everybody, and he would fight Ant-Man, using his powers to take him out in this timeline, and Hawkeye would be stopped by him also. It was Iron Man, Black Panther, and Vision on the team left. They were slowly being outnumbered. Vision would be able to get to the Quinjet in time, but would be stopped by Falcon. Vision would use his powers and choke Falcon in the air, but Scarlet Witch would stop him. He would throw him to the ground, and she would use her powers to stop Vision. Black Panther would use this as an opportunity and scratch Scarlet Witch in the back. She would be screaming and she would fall to the ground. Vision would be mad, telling Black Panther that he had it under control, and then he would use the Mind Stone on him, making him go flying into a wall, being incapacitated. Black Panther was out of action. Vision would go to her aid, and while this was happening, Captain America, Spider-Man, and Bucky would be running to the Quinjet, and they would leave in time. Iron Man would try to stop them, but Ant-Man would turn huge, preventing Iron Man from getting to them in time. Events would play out differently because Black Panther is out of action and War Machine doesn't get badly injured. Spider-Man stays in the fight and Iron Man's team loses. Iron Man would call in for backup, and the government and the army would come in and take the rest of Cap's team, and they would be all arrested. Just like in our original timeline, Iron Man would figure out who the main villain really was and what was really going on by getting information from Falcon at the raft. Iron Man in this universe would bring War Machine with him, and Black Panther would be in the hospital recovering from his injuries. Iron Man would use a tracker device to track Spider-Man's location from the suit, and Captain America would talk to Spider-Man about why he wanted to join him, and they would reveal to Spider-Man that they had bigger issues and Iron Man wasn't the big issue, and how they had to stop the rest of the super soldiers before they would become awake. Spider-Man knew this was his chance to prove himself as a hero, and he would do it in front of Captain America. Captain America would thank Spider-Man for helping him at the airport and to see what was really going on and what was happening. They would make their way to Berlin like the original timeline, but Spider-Man would be there with Bucky and Captain America. They would walk into the facility, but Iron Man and War Machine would meet them there. Iron Man would see Spider-Man, saying it didn't have to end like this, and he would explain that they were there without Ross knowing, and that they wanted to help put an end to these super soldiers once and for all. Captain America would tell Tony it was true, then all 5 of them would walk into the room looking around, but the super soldiers were dead. Zemo, just like in our original timeline, would explain why he did it, and he would show Iron Man the tape of his parents being killed by the Winter Soldier. Iron Man would flip out, and before he could hit Captain America in the face, Spider-Man would use his spider sense to catch his arm. Iron Man would tell Peter, saying, "Is this what it's come to?" He would say he gave him an opportunity, but now he threw it away. Iron Man would headbutt Spider-Man, and he would fall to the ground. War Machine would charge at Bucky and fly right towards him, spearing him into concrete. Captain America would see this and kick Iron Man, and he would use his shield to cut off War Machine's gun near his shoulder. Zemo would lock the door, making sure nobody could leave, and he would plan for his escape. Spider-Man would get back up and he would go toe-to-toe with Iron Man, and Spider-Man would tell Tony that he lost people too, and that there was a bigger fight here. He would scream at Iron Man, saying Zemo was the bad guy and he was getting away. Iron Man wouldn't care, and he would use use a repulsor blast, but Spider-Man would dodge it, but it would hit Captain America in the back. Spider-Man would look at Cap and he would kick Iron Man, and Iron Man would be hit to the ground, but he would fly in the air, and Spider-Man would do a backflip landing on Iron Man's back using webs to the ground, and Iron Man would be shot to the ground. War Machine would be getting ganged up on by Captain America and Bucky, and they would completely wreck him. Cap would use his shield and destroy his arc reactor, disabling the War Machine's suit. Bucky would pick him up and he would do a backbreaker, finishing the job once and for all. Iron Man would get back up to see Cap and Bucky and Spider-Man. It was 3 against 1. Iron Man would say to Cap his mom was dead because of him, and Cap would explain, telling him he was being controlled, but it wasn't too late to defeat the real villain before he escaped. Iron Man would tell him that he was the real villain, and Captain America would look at him, and all 3 of them would walk away. Iron Man would turn around, seeing them leave. They were just walking away, and Iron Man would yell at Captain America that he didn't deserve the shield, and they would turn around, and Iron Man, with one last ditch effort, he would use the biggest arc reactor blast ever, and Bucky would be hit in the chest and he would fall to the ground. His other arm would be blasted right off, and Cap would look at Iron Man and he would run towards him, and he would throw his shield right at Iron Man and he would fall to the ground. Spider-Man would help Bucky up and he would drag him towards a wall, and Cap would yell at Spider-Man to get to Zemo before he escaped. Spider-Man would web swing there, and Zemo would run looking at Spider-Man. He would pull a gun, but Spider-Man would kick it out of his hands, and he would use his webs and he would kick him in the gut. Zemo was done, and he would pick him up, dragging him towards Captain America. Captain America would beat the life out of Tony, and he would let him live like the original timeline. They would grab Bucky and Zemo. Zemo would still be captured like the original timeline, but this time it wasn't Black Panther, it would be Captain America. Bucky would undergo surgery in his other arm, and they would have to amputate it. Spider-Man would be forced into hiding with Captain America, and Cap would train him, and he would learn his new fighting style, and Spider-Man would also don a new suit looking like the original Ultimate Spider-Man suit. The events of Spider-Man Homecoming would still happen, but Iron Man in this timeline wouldn't help Spider-Man on the boat or during the events of the ending battle. Spider-Man would still take on the Vulture and defeat him, and Iron Man and Peter would form a truce at the end of the movie because Spider-Man ended up proving himself to be a hero to Iron Man. During the events of Infinity War, Spider-Man would still team up with Iron Man at the start of the film because of their truce they made at the end of Homecoming, and Peter would phone Captain America telling him about Thanos and bringing Cap together with Tony once again, reforming the Avengers to defeat Thanos. The events of Titan would be really different in this alternate reality because the team would consist of Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Star-Lord, and Thor, and they would all try to defeat Thanos on Titan. Thor would aim for the head, and in this timeline they would kill Thanos, and in this reality they would not experience the snap, and they wouldn't invent time travel because of the snap. The stones would be destroyed, and that would wrap up our alternate version of what if Spider-Man chose a different path and joined Captain America in Captain America Civil War. And that's the fan fiction. This was highly requested, so I had to do it. I will be doing more MCU fan fictions in the future, and if you guys did enjoy this video, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But anyways, as always, peace out.